Alright guys, thought I'd do a video today. I'm actually going to lounge at a funny angle, just for my own amusement. I was thinking about this today simply because I keep seeing this stuff on Farage. Because obviously they're trying to bash him to death now. Not literally. They throw milkshakes and that at him and think that's acceptable. But the media and the other parties. Should we just call them the other parties? Because I think there'd be very few parties that aren't actually proactively being quite negative with him. So I've watched a few things on the debates, and I've got to admit, he's just ripping him a new one. Because most of these people have got by poor staging. You know, the debates are often, what do they call it? It could almost be pre-written. I'm not saying they are all pre-written, but they're often not really of any substance. But Farage is calling them out on these stages, and he's just destroying them. Now, I've got to admit, for me, there's two sides of this coin. Firstly, is he an amazing politician? But I don't think he really is. I think the reality is he's a outspoken and focused on his viewpoint politician. Maybe his downfall in the long term. We'll wait and see on that, because it's very hard to pull people together if you're on a single viewpoint. The whole point of what you've got with Labour and Conservatives, which is all Blairite nonsense, is that the focus is about promising nothing. If you do a director's course, and the reason that I bring it up, this is very relevant, is it actually focuses on that you're there more as a overseer, and you don't actually promise a thing. That's your position. That's how it's promoted. That you're not actually. Well, I look at it and go, you mean no substance, no value, no. You're just there to talk a load of chuff. Well, a lot of this is where Farage is eating them alive, because their focus is, I hate Farage. You should hate Farage because I hate Farage, because he's attacking me, he's attacking my job, he's attacking Conservative, attacking Labour. Yeah? No, he's pointing out the obvious problems, and you're going on a rampage and losing everywhere. Because the thing with Farage is he's stating the obvious, and it's working. The opposition to that is pretty much, I hate the word elite. Elite makes it sound like they have a positive status. Alright, I'm going to go through three things. Elite, we need to stop using the word elite as if they're allowed to create a positive aroma. Yeah, let's call it aroma rather than an arena. Positive arena around themselves. And we'll just call them what they are, which is parasites. They are self-serving parasites, the majority of them. So we need to stop using the word elite. Elite appeared, I think it probably appeared around your Paris Hiltons when she started doing things with champagne bottles. But the whole elitism thing is we need to take that out, because it's not elite, because that's to create the illusion that you can't touch them. Oh, don't go there. You're on about actually physical harm. No, they're quite happy to have a laugh at throwing milkshake at Farage or whatever. But the reality is, they're trying to create a degree of separation. They're a lot more fragile than you think. You can take the elections away from them quite easily. You can take their jobs, their authority quite easily. But we often don't focus on it. This is the problem. Look how quickly they all turned on Richie Sunak and his Sky Dish nonsense. I mean, when he come out with that crap, either he's going out of his way to destroy his own career because he doesn't care, because he's already wealthy and he's already achieved whatever it was he was doing as a Prime Minister. We won't know about that. We still haven't heard all about Boris. Because we probably won't hear about what they got up to for probably another 25 to 50 years. Welcome to democracy. So you got Farage that's fighting a good case, been quite open, quite positive. And then on the other side, you're starting to see the media trying to pull against him, the media trying to destroy him, politicians going snide and whatever, trying to look at him as if he's the scum, you're not allowed into our little elite club, all this sort of stuff, because they despise him. Because he's let's face it, he's not one of you or one of me. These are not really my glasses. These are sort of super strength ones, which is why I look like I'm from the what's that, Trailer Park Boys. the guy sort of, yeah, I look like him. But these have got little heights. I bought them because they were like £2.50, €2.50. I tried them on. I thought these are right for reading. I tried to use them on the computer screen. I'm like, my God, I can use them as a microscope. But anyway, back on target. So the parasites, I'm not going to say elitists, I'm going to use the word parasites. The parasites are not happy with what's going on. Because when you've got this piece where you either vote red or blue or you get nothing, or if you don't vote red or blue, you still get red or blue. As a politician, why would I care about you if I was in one of those parties? Why would I care about you? Low turnout, couldn't give a toss. Couldn't care less. I'm getting my seat regardless. It's all a little club. I'm not saying boys club, because we've gone down the Me Too route and feminism and women in business and all the other tripe that goes all over LinkedIn. It's oh God, now you've done it. And then you look at somebody like Diane Abbott, whose recent photos got two different shoes of the left hand or whatever she's wearing. I mean, you're telling me this person graduated from Oxford? Come on. Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. How the hell did she get through Oxford? But I remember my father on about when they had, because when he first started in the British Army, there was two Jamaican police officers. I think they were doing the sergeant exam, and he was saying they were just as thick as anything, and they did it about 2 or 3 times, and they were passed even though they couldn't actually pass. They just weren't smart enough. Because it's all to do with the status quo. Yeah, so Diane Abbott, you tell me she's elite. You telling me she's elite. God help us all. Yeah, but back onto the elite thing. Yeah, so elite's one word I say we need to change. Really do. We need to stop using it. We need to find other contexts of actually saying what these people really are. And there's got to be some really good ones from history that they're more obscure and interesting words than these people that have made themselves elite. Elite my backside. But another one is Nigel Farage is being portrayed with this populist. He's populist. He's populist. Do you know what populist actually means? Representing the population, the votes that is listening to the people and focused on what the population want. That's why it's got popular in the word. But it's not around what will be, because they portray it as if it's what will get him in because it's what's popular. As if it's like you're just feeding what makes people happy. He isn't, though. Let's face it, trying to fix immigration does not fix that will not be popular for a lot of people, I'll tell you now. That just brought the thoughts back to yesterday. He was on talk show. I can't call them political debates either, because I just find these people just annoying. But there was talk. It's a Welsh minister of sorts saying about how changing the system will not allow foreign students to bring their relatives while they're studying at university and stuff. And as he said, well, Farage went, what? Are you saying like bringing your mum to university? You don't bring your mum to university in the UK. Why should foreign students bring their mum? Now, I think he was being a bit candid on that, because we know it's about a lot broader than that. But the fact is, it's like, well, yeah. If I was studying for 2 years in, I don't know, I'm in Spain at the minute, let's just say, went to study. See, I was going to say Calcutta there, but I can't say that anymore. New Delhi, as a doctor for 2 years or whatever, which is quick, short and sharp, not 10 years. I would expect that I would come back here during the holiday seasons and stuff. I would not expect my family to come to the UK or come to India to see me. Why did you choose India? It's just for a bit of context, that my expectation would not be to bring family with me. And I wouldn't expect family to come to the UK. Because our side of this stuff is like the guy who plays piano in London, and the stuff that's happened to him with the Chinese. That's a bit racist, Matt. He said the Chinese. Well, just watch what happens to him, and he's not actually doing anything wrong. It's like people thinking they can dictate Chinese policy in the train station in the UK and getting away with it. Yeah, there's a broad piece on that. If you want to know any more, put in the comments and I'll find the videos. But yeah, I don't think people realise how deep some of this stuff runs. Because if you watch the ones that are in the same stuff that was upsetting the guy playing the piano, they started linking them with politicians as well. Because then you start thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's something not right here about the foreign students and stuff. What's going on? And then you start going down this rabbit hole of why things are the way they are. But anyway, yeah, so populist, going back onto that. So they try, the whole context of that, they try to make out that it's wrong to be listening to the population and focusing on what the problems are with the society. The majority of people. So that's the bit they forget, the majority. They make it out as popular rather than populist. Popular is like, we're going to cut taxes by 15%. Yay! Yeah, that's popular. Populist is more around, could be around the taxes are too high, but it could also be around immigration. It could also be around many things that can cause short-term pain and long-term gain, etc. But it's not used in that context. They look at it as if you're wrong because you're just listening to what people say and just doing what they want. Yeah, but who votes you in, guys? Now, I've got to admit, what people want may not necessarily be what people should have. That's the other thing. It's a conversation we had out in the desert a long time ago about food, because a lot of the food is average, and they said, well, you give people lobster every day, eventually they hate lobster, and this is why they have a mixed menu. I've got to admit, it's always got me. Don't like dal, because they had dal every day, and chicken wings for breakfast. Always got me. All a bit weird, but anyway. So that was the one, the popularist. What was the other one? There was another one that I've got to write this down. So if you're populist, you're wrong. Oh, progressive. Yeah, progressive. See, I'm progressive, and if you don't agree with me, you're traditionalist or something else. Because I'm looking for answers. I'm looking to move things forward. I'm so arrogant. This is the way I approach things. This is the people you're dealing with. This is their way of thinking. Their whole defense mechanism is already up before you even get into a debate, because it's going, well, I'm progressive, so if you don't agree with what I am, you must be a racist, a bigot, a traditionalist, anti-gay, anti-this, anti-that. Because if I remove that, I have to have a conversation and put forward some common sense debating around this. A lot of the time, we don't have enough substance to actually do that. I need to devalue everything you've got before you've even opened your mouth. So I'm moving forward where you're standing still or going backwards. I'm right, you're wrong. And I know I've said these things, and probably some of you may be shouting at the screen going, where to go? The point being is, this is the arrogance that you've got with some of these people, and the reason I'm doing this is to show you, when you're speaking, you hear these people, look at it from that perspective of what they're actually saying and how they say it, because this is what is wrong with the system. These people are so arrogant and delusional many times, too much. They're disconnected from reality. This whole thing with Rishi Sunak and the Sky Dish nonsense, I thought it was a meme to start with. I couldn't believe the idiot actually said it. But he seems to be on a path of destruction now. Has he been staged for that, or is he doing it intentionally? I have no idea. Because this is the problem with politics. You look at the way Liz Truss got hammered down. If you look at Lotus Eaters, and the interview they did with her, you'll see how she talks about Tony Blair being in the background of the Conservatives and things like that. There's a deeper thing going on here, which doesn't matter if it's red or blue, it will carry up the middle. This is why they're not bothered. Moving on to that's the other side of the coin. You got Farage. He will have investments from somewhere. Is he more or less scrupulous than the others? I'd say probably less. And I say probably because I don't know. I know as much as you do. But the reality is, we know the guys that are red or blue, untrustworthy. They've proven it time and time again. So that's the two sides of the coin. Where I think Reform are going to do quite well is not in the actual elections. In the elections, they haven't got enough people standing to take the seats. So, I mean, I'm not even sure how many seats are in Parliament anymore. I mean, it must be about 800, isn't it? Something stupid. I mean, why the hell we need that many is beyond me, especially when I don't think any of them actually represent any of us. But the reality is, Farage's team are probably going to get about seven seats. If they do more than that, good. And you've got people already going, oh yeah, but they're far right. Yeah. Look at what they're doing. Look at what far right are. And try and understand the different contexts of things that are going. Don't just listen to crap people tell you. Do your own research. Do your own reading. For a start, they're not going to get a lot of political power. I want them in Parliament. Why? Because if you notice a lot of the debates and stuff, people don't turn up. If Farage gets 7 people that turn up to every debate and session around whatever policy it is, they're going to be seen more. They have live debates. You're going to get them on TV. They're going to be a voice. They're going to want to be heard. They're going to actually upset the status quo. They're not going to be Boris and Starmer, whatever. They probably go and sit in one of the 13 bars inside the Parliament after a big debate as best buddies. You're actually going to have people that are going to sit there and just actually hammer it, because they already know they haven't got enough power to control a vote at a local level, at a policy level. They don't have enough numbers, but they can be seen a lot more. They can be noisy. They can be that little mosquito that's in your bedroom. You can smack it down, you can do this, but every time you shut your eyes and try to drift off, it's in your ear. And that's where Reform's going to do well. And the more they're in the ear, the more people are going to hear it. The more likely they're going to get more momentum. Because you've got to bear in mind, there is no shock horror. We're not under a presidential system. Although we've had things that I don't agree were even legal happen in the UK in many cases around politics over recent years. It's to do with the destabilising of things. It's to do with the noise. It's not suddenly going to be London's burning overnight type thing. There's just dramatic, and you'll probably start getting the propagandists start to portray that. It's absolute nonsense. I would pretty much guarantee Labour's going to get in with a majority just by default. But I would expect that the Conservatives may have shrinkage, but they'll be back at the next election, because once Labour cock it up, then it's a free-for-all at the next election. And to be fair, as I say, red and blue, straight up the middle. Doesn't matter which one's in. In fact, it'll be good for the Blues to sit back, let the Labour cock it up, and then come back. All is forgotten what you did previously, because there's been a gap of 5 years and too many people have the mindset of goldfish. Where you've got is the noise. Now, the other piece on this is the number of votes. If you start to recognise that the fact that you've got politicians all over the country as a group getting voted in on small percentages of the populations for that region, yet you get massive turnouts for reform that suddenly get votes in the millions, you've got grounds to start trying to change the politics of the system, which may be more around the representation of the demographics and the communities within them. Because at the moment, it doesn't represent anybody. It represents greed at the minute. I've got to admit, I'm pro-Euro in the sense of open borders, in the sense of for Europeans, and the fact that, you know, when people are talking about take back our borders, take back control, and then look what we've got. Look at the state of it. This was my point, is didn't matter if it was in the EU or in the UK. It's been badly run. Unless you're actually going to go through the process of change and improving it, I didn't see the advantages of Brexit for the Brits. I've seen the disadvantages, and we've seen a lot of them. I think, I mean, by the by, I get some people, you know, half the population. And people go, oh, well, it's more than half. I didn't vote. There's lots of people who didn't vote. So let's just call it half the population. Keep it easy. Because let's just say, I accept other people's opinions on it, but I have not seen any value so far in leaving the EU. It doesn't mean that I'm pro-EU government either, because this is where it gets a bit confusing, because open borders for Europeans, 100% behind, still remain behind that. Net zero concerns me. Net zero, Farage has brought this up, is that it's got very little value. Of course it's got very little value. Most of the pollution's not created by Europe. It's things like these places like China and India that are going through industrializations. But I would also say part of the problem is we buy the products. So is it a case that we should actually be heavily taxing imports from these countries while promoting manufacturing within our own nations? Well, I agree with that anyway. One of the things for me is I think energy needs to be at the lowest cost we could make it, so it's almost free. Because if you remove that burden, manufacturing is much easier. But it also means that the living crisis is under control. So, but hey ho, let's move to that to one side, because we're moving off tangent. Because I personally believe there's a lot of tech out there that can actually make like people's lives easier, and we won't spend the money on it as usual. We'll spend it on other stuff. I don't mean as an individual, I mean as nations. We seem to go down this rabbit hole of exploitation rather than preservation of our own society's culture, etc. But the net zero, I do a lot with net zero because I work with government buildings, etc. There's a lot of money available for net zero buildings. I'm talking, I think last year it's around 1.4 billion. You could put cases towards why you think you should get funding for lighting, insulation, loft insulation, wall insulation, new windows, etc., for schools, for hospitals, etc. From that perspective, I agree with it 100%. But I do not believe in ULEZ. I do not believe in scrapping all these cars. I do not believe that going all electric. But I'm going to give a positive and a negative. So the positive for me is one of the key ones I'm interested in is lighting. Lighting is something you have to replace anyway. On buildings, it's about 20-year life cycle. So at year 20, you should be changing your lights, or progressively. I've done it probably 2 years earlier. Started doing it in phases. The reason I like a phased approach is because I don't throw any lights away. What I do is, as I say, I start at the front of a building and I take the lights that are working out the foyer, out the lobby, out the reception desks, all that sort of stuff. They become the spares. And then that may be a phase one for that year. But all the lights that you replace in the building are the ones that you took out the lobby, the reception area, etc., until you've got no lights, old lights. So your lobby's all brand new, your reception's all brand new, but you don't throw away the lights that are fit for purpose. You reuse them. You use them until you've run them down. Every phase, over 5 years, you do a whole building. You shouldn't have much wastage, rather than scrapping all those lights that were already functioning. Now, I get that you can move from a 32 watt down to an 8 watt LED light from an energy point of view, but at the same time, I also factor in the transportation, the waste management, and the destruction, as well as the manufacturing of making those lights in the first place. If I've got an existing light, it exists. This is why electric cars are an odd one, because if you look at the energy that goes into a new car compared to a car that already exists, there's a massive difference. Over its life cycle, you will find that an existing car is probably more economical. Matt, that sounds like madness. Look, I'm just looking at it from the amount of energy that goes into it, CO2 emissions, etc., etc. I do it from a mathematical point of view, which actually shows that for example, an existing car is already there. There is no manufacturing cost. It's already happened. So it's there. Building a new car, you're going from scratch. So all this scrappage scheme and all this nonsense, don't agree with. I'm one that's sort of an advocate for actual gradual change through phasing out, through the death of vehicles, which always seemed to be the norm. But now we seem to be trying to destroy things, like scrap all the diesel vehicles. But put this as a little footnote: when will diesel be cool again? Because I can pretty much guarantee, give it another 10-15 years, because we have a lot of diesel fuel, suddenly diesel will be cool again. It's just the cycles of bureaucracy we're in, the stuff we're getting pumped on a daily basis. You're bad if you've got a diesel. You must have an electric car. You should use public transportation. You should do this. Goes down the route of this bloody Tony Blair and the Davos slot. Because the fact is, this whole you will own nothing. You'll get people assume this isn't happening. Of course it's happening. Have you seen the price of cars? I remember going back, I mean, I know it's a few years, but I remember Renault Clio being £6,000 because I bought one. Last time I checked, it was £26,000. But then again, I looked at a Mercedes A180, I think it was, in the Mercedes garage down here. I think it's 45 or 48,000 euros. Sorry? Everything's going through the roof. So the assumption that we'll be able to afford it, they're just going to price it out the market. So if your food's gone up, your electric's gone up, your mortgage has gone up, what's the odds on you buying a new car this year? or next year. If they keep it on this path, that's what we're going to get, because that's where net zero is going to drive it. Net zero is going to force costs to go up by force. It's not going to be by choice. It'll be all this delusional false stuff where we're going, how did the energy companies make these massive profits? Because they were allowed to. Yeah, we're not under control of the government. This is why the stuff like with Farage, this is why it's all going back on tangent now. So stuff with Farage is important because with Farage, he is actually out there just saying things as they are, whether people like it or not. He may not be right, but at least he's saying something. I don't see any of that with any other politician. And I'll finish off with what they call the far right in Europe. I look at some of the stuff that's going on there, and Penn in France was on about deportations, about people that don't integrate into the nation. I wouldn't say that's far right. I would say that's an acceptable thing, because the same as I come to Spain, I pay my taxes, I bought a house, I paid my own healthcare, I try to speak Spanish. I mean, I spend a lot of time learning Spanish, but it's not clicked because I spend too much time working and around people that don't speak Spanish. But the fact is, I've done everything I can to integrate. A lot of the people that are problematic in society haven't done a stitch. And then the next generation that's come in or followed on from the last generation have not done it. Some people have not learned any of the language in 40 years. That's not integration. My view is very simple. You should be a benefit to the economy. Oh, Matt, you sound like the Matrix now. If you're already in this country, which, be it Spain, be it the UK, be it wherever, I never went anywhere in my life and expected to have people carry me. And I detest people assume that other people are here to pay for them. Now, being able to work part-time and do whatever you like, got no issue with it. I've got no problem with people who can float through life, and as long as we're not paying for it. So, yeah, I've got no issue with deportation. If people are not looking after themselves, refuse to integrate, start to cause localized rebellions, let's call it what it is when you start having all these very negative protests that aren't even related to the country you're in, I'd say that's localized rebellion. You're not following the law, you're not following the respect of the nation you're in, especially if you're a foreign student, for example, because do you think you could do that if I was in China, start protesting against the Chinese government? I don't think so. It's about respect. You don't have to respect our values or anything else, because you don't have to be in our countries. That's it. Go home. And it's not because I'm forcing you home or anything else. Is you refusing to integrate? You're rolling around on the floor, kicking and screaming and crying because you deserve this and want that. It's not me that's in the wrong. Which then gets me onto the whole leftist protesting thing in France as well, where you got people crying about, we've just fought for all these rights. You've just fought. Do you know what I find weird in a lot of this stuff? Because I'm going to move off the last comment with because the immigration piece is one thing. Now I get the problems around jobs and everything in countries, but I lived in the Philippines where most jobs are not available to foreigners. I accept that. If I come to Spain, would I get the same level job that I'm qualified in the UK? Absolutely not. Is it because they're racist? I have no idea, but some people say they are. Some people say it's because the countries more small to medium-sized enterprises. So you have a lot of family-orientated businesses. But ultimately, I accept it. I don't call racism. I don't call hate. I don't call I deserve this. I accept this is not my home country. This is where I reside. This is where we'll make it our home. I move and integrate. I'm not going to be an advocate of trying to change the democracy of another nation. Who the hell am I to do so? I accept this is what it is. So I make my money elsewhere. And eventually I will be here and retired like many of the others. But I've got my first £1,000 towards my Harley now. Or if I had something today where there's a few Harleys. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, so you got a lot of leftists crying and stuff, complaining that we fought for these rights. See, the bit that gets me, because of doing this leadership course piece, there's a big stress on empathy, but these people don't have any. I don't see much empathy from the left. They're often, how dare you, with a scrunched up horrible face, because they're only interested in their own viewpoint. And it's not even about fact a lot of time, it's viewpoint. So my point on this is, I don't give a damn. Don't give a damn. I am sick and tired of seeing women in business. We're setting the club together for women because I don't work that way, and most guys don't. The ones that are part of clubs are normally part of clubs that already existed over hundreds of years, that their dad went to, their grandfather went to. I have no interest in going, oh yeah, this is the men's only club. I'm going to form it on Friday. Not interested. But I do support things like shed clubs because they get it. It cuts down on depression, suicide, and other things that relate to men's mental health because of redundancy, retirement, divorce, death of their partner, etc. They're important for guys. Guys are not wired the same as women. See, it's like me. I'll take the brunt of stuff. I wake up the following day. I do not need a counsellor. I do not need somebody to pat me on the back and say, are you feeling all right, man? Do you want to talk about your problems? No, I bloody well don't. No, I don't. I'm a Gen X. I'm brought up with actually like it or lump it. Or if things go wrong, just tough, move on. That whole emotional thing, I think, has actually damaged a lot of the generations move forwards. But then we're getting into the amount of people. Psychology is predominantly women that are in psychology, and all this. It's more complex than on the surface. But my viewpoint as a man is I don't agree with it. If other guys think I need it, I don't know. Okay, that's fine for you. But for me, it's not my thing. At the same time, I'd rather be a guy in the sense of, like me or one of the guys that one of my group had a crap day, got a crap boss, got whatever. We just ring each other up and we'll just say how crap the week is. But we don't need to sit there with a little tissue and all that sort of stuff. That's not a guy thing for me. We'll just go work shit. Hey, my boss is this. And we're all in different companies and we're all at senior levels. So it's one of those unwritten groups where we can talk to each other because we all understand each other because we're all facing the same problems, because a lot of the problems that we're now talking with the teary-eyed leftists has been caused by the teary-eyed leftists. So I think I mentioned before about a friend of mine where a guy didn't get the job because he was white, white male. And when they were talking in the meeting, because there's all directors in the meeting of a big company, they said, we can't have any more white people because we're all white. And my friend says, but I'm Iranian Italian. I'm probably one of the lowest demographics in the country. No, you're not. You're from Oxford. It's like, no. They just wouldn't. It's like, no, you're from Oxford. They wouldn't even accept it. But this is what's going on at senior levels. They are literally going, we need a black person. We need this. Oh, we need to promote the women over the men. They are doing it on purpose. And it's all to fulfill this bloody equality, diversity, and nonsense, which is actually damaging to the businesses, damaging to the individuals. Because let's face it, if you got over promoted, good luck having people that like you. Good luck having people around you that want to support you and not throw you under the bus. But also, wonder why we started getting imposter syndrome come from somewhere that wasn't there before. It's suddenly just become a new buzz thing. I wonder why that was. But then you get people like myself that know they're sort of getting pushed to the side or whatever because they're streamlining for these individuals, and you start sitting back a bit. So I normally do like an 80-90 hour week, no problem. I'm doing a 40-hour week and that's it. I'm focused more, like now I'm going to do it Sunday, but I'm going to do my college course today because I've got my assignment due tomorrow. But I want to get my college stuff done, sorting the Harley Davidson out, starting, I'm working on developing stuff outside work. I've never been like that through my career. This has only happened in recent times thanks to the lefts. They've destroyed people like myself. Our industry is struggling to get people like me to stay because we don't want to work there because we carry the weight. We do the heavy lifting. We're the guys that do all the calculations. We're the guys that do all the maths behind it. We do all the fixing, all the complex stuff where other people go, look at me, do I look pretty in my dress? Do I look pretty? Do I look pretty? Matt, you sound like you got a chip in. No, you got a chip in my shoulder because the problem with leading people up the stairs, it's when it gets to the top and then you realise people like me aren't there and you're looking around, they're going, this whole thing's about to collapse. So it's not vindictive, it's just reality because people ain't even coming into the industry anymore. It is really hard. I mean, the engineers, most of the engineers are around my age group and they hate these people. They hate the companies, the cultures. And you know what? Something like this on the comment section, I would get bashed if I put it on LinkedIn. But then you get a lot of people approach you directly and say, yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. Because people don't want to speak out either. And this is the big problem. And this is where I think Farage is gaining momentum. And this is where I think we are going down a route of change. If they start to see that, say, Farage gets 2 million people, while some people find they get their entire Lib Dems get people voted in with 10 times as many seats with a quarter of the number of people, you start going, well, this obviously doesn't represent the UK. Proportional representation doesn't work. It doesn't exist in the UK. But yeah, so we've got some changes coming up. One of the things I want to say from a positive perspective is, if you're somebody like me, just see through the crowd. Don't waste your time on it. I mean, I've got to admit, I'm a bit more blunt these days, and when people lie to my face, I call them out on it. I no longer care. Even in a work ethics piece, I'll just say it as it is. If you don't like me, I don't care. I can get a job at the same level in so many firms now because there's so many gaps, but I want to move to director. But I may actually have to scrap all my technical knowledge and go down the idiot route just to get in the door from another side. Because if you're too technical, too smart, they don't want you to go up the ladder. They can't fill your gaps. Don't mind being the smartest person in the room. Bear in mind, I'm the only person in the room, so I can say that. But the point being is we are going through a seismic change, and Europe's going through it as well. I'm going to make another coffee, I think. Europe's going to go through it, and like I said, the leftists deserve a hammering anyway. Not literally, but or in a literal. Is it literal? Not in a physical sense, but in a literal, litrical. Yeah, in the sense of just in words. They deserve what they're getting. They really do. I mean, this whole he, she, whatever nonsense needs to go. It doesn't work. It causes confusion, and I think it makes it worse for kids, because then they're in this whole dynamic of where do I sit? Because it doesn't make sense, you know. It was never, the they them thing was never designed for people to decide whatever they feel like on a Tuesday. It needs to stop. So I think that's going to get wiped out, hopefully. Matt, you're so anti-gay. I've got no issue with anybody. People keep having issues with me. You know, I know a lot of people that are from different demographics around the world, from different cultures, different races, different religions, and a lot of people from various sexual orientations. And I don't have a problem with any of them, because the key to a lot of stuff in life is you don't have to do it in front of my face. You know, I don't mind people having, you know, their Pride March or whatever through London, you know, once a year or for the month. I don't care. I mean, I see it as a lot of waste of taxpayers' money for a month, but for a day, do what you want, but don't prance around in front of kids half naked and stuff, because for me, it's the vulgarity of it. You know, if people know that area is going to be let's call it an 18 plus area between X time, whatever, let them know so they can avoid it. It's not a celebration where guys are dressed up, because even here in Tolbeca there was kids dressed up in leather clad stuff, and that got in the media. I don't agree with that at all. Kids need to preserve being a kid. That's, for me, that's just wrong on all levels. You know, two guys in their bedroom pounding away at each other, fine. I don't need to see it, don't need to hear it, don't need to know about what you did yesterday. Go and do whatever you want. You know, I don't come into work and tell people, hey, you know what, me and the missus last night, where were they? It just doesn't go on. Guatemala's got a swingers club, and it's got I think it's like a brothel on the roundabout. I may be wrong. I think it's, what's it called? Nancy's. Yeah, look it up. Nancy's at Guatemala. But the fact is, everywhere has its place. I know what Guatemala swingers big sign means. Doesn't mean I'm disgusted with the signage or whatever. Well, unless it's the wrong font. It's not bothering me. The brothel aspect, it's not for me to change legislation, not for me to interfere in what goes on there. That's the Spanish government. If this is acceptable, it's the same as, I call them the orange sellers. There's lots of plastic chairs. You'll find, like, even at the top of the road here, there's a woman who sits on a plastic chair, and she goes over the park with guys, you know, for some relief in the exchange of financial for flesh. I have no issue with what people are doing, because quite simply, it's none of my business. It's when you start flaunting it in front of me. You know, some people may say, well, I don't think that's right, but you don't see them doing it. You know what the white chair and the woman sat on there means. Because it's quite funny when we first moved here, because you see them at the bottom of the paths, like where the farms were. And I thought, what fruit are they selling? Because I don't see them with any oranges or anything. They've got to go all the way back up to get the oranges. I actually thought they were selling fruit, but it's not. They're selling something else. But I've no issue with it in that sense. Now, if you start going down the route of slavery and things like that, it's a more complex beast. Because I am not the law. I don't claim to be the law. I am an advocate of anti-slavery. However, I also recognise this is not my country. These are not my laws. These are not my rules. The government can do stuff if it wanted to. I also recognise the social system is not on par with what you'd expect in the UK. So it's a far more complex beast than, say, people on benefits in the UK. Or, well, even that, you then go down the route of if somebody's doing it in their own home and it's their choice. None of my business. It's when you start trafficking people across Europe and stuff. That's when we have a problem, and we do. We've got a massive one. Mel Gibson did cover that, not very well, but he did cover a lot of points on that movie he did, and I do recommend seeing it. Because I've seen some stuff over the years that it's horrific. It's horrific what happens to people and what they get sold into, etc. But at the same time, we're not even on scratching the surface of it anymore. We don't even talk about it. But I've managed to move from the left. We've gone so far around into another subject. But from the left perspective, leave all the slavery and that side of stuff. But the people doing whatever they do in their own rooms, fine. I'm not going to celebrate somebody that's decided to cut their bits off and become a woman. It's just not it's not my thing. You cannot change my mindset. It will never change. It's not because I'm anti this or anti that. There's this shocking thing. Really, really shocking. I'm not interested. Not interested at all. I'd rather watch a football game, and I don't watch football. So the fact is, I do not need to celebrate that John is now Jemima or whatever. Why? What am I celebrating? Are we going to have a funeral for his bits that he cut off? There is nothing to celebrate. That's between him and his friends and whatever. Sorry, what's it got to do with work? It confuses me why all this stuff is getting into the workplace. Then you realise it's all this leftism stuff. Because I see it a lot. And the funny thing is, I know I annoy people a lot because I'm like, how was your weekend? None of your business. Because I don't say it that way, but I just switch straight to work. If somebody said to me, oh, I seen you, I see you posting LinkedIn, you were at a Green Day concert last weekend. Yeah, as I was saying, I've gone through the Excel sheets and whatever. I just cut it off, and I'm brutal with it because in your workspace, especially most of the ones I'm in recent years, a lot of the people around me, I don't trust. And it's not because I'm distrustful of people generally, or I don't give people the benefit of the doubt, or anything else that would say it's a me issue. It's because I've seen what they've done to people. Many of the people I work with have stuck the knife in others. Not literal. But there's a lot of betrayal, a lot of lying, a lot of deception. And the industry is riddled with it. So a lot of the guys I've worked with or got fired or whatever, I actually ask them how they are. I actually reach out to people just to check they're okay. Because a few years back, there was a guy called Ian Edmondson, very good technical services manager, ex-naval engineer, knew what he was doing. He ended up on a targeted attack to get rid of him. I'm not going into the ins and outs of it, but it's all a bit bizarre. But he ended up where he went off because I think it was 4 attempts to get rid of him. They, like they accused him of one thing, he managed to dispel it, get rid of it, and then they went back with something else, failed again, went back again, and this went on for months. I mean, the guy must have been under a lot of pressure and stress. So I knew the guy lived alone. So I used to, when he went off sick, because he went off with a lot of stress, I actually reached out with him and said, do you want to meet up for coffee and all this sort of stuff. Checked up on him. Because the guy had been doing that job for, I think, 16 years. It wasn't him. I mean, the guy's been doing the same job for 16 years. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to do a good job. The problems were within the business. But he was quite abrasive. You're trying to approach him. He's all right if he understands you, because sometimes he's one of the few people I know that would actually come up and apologise. Because there was a few instances where he said something and I've gone back to him and said, no, that's wrong, whatever. And he's had a bit of a rant about it. And then he's come back like 40 minutes later and gone, sorry, Matt, you were right. That is like, because I'm normally always right. No, but he always tried to do the best he could do. And he was good at what he did. His communication wasn't great, but the problem with the communication was often caused by others not listening or trying to do stuff without him knowing and things like that, because they're getting direction from multiple people. I know it sounds slightly off tangent, but I just want to put it in perspective that this is some of the problems that you face in business today, and it's not just one company. There's a few companies that I've experienced or seen it. But with Ian, they forced him out. He took it quite hard. I went and met him up, had a coffee. He'd gone out and done some consulting for somebody else after, I think they got him to resign in the end. Just kept pushing and pushing. But it broke him. He didn't mention it or whatever in that way, but you could tell it hurt him pretty bad. And I got persuaded him to move into a shared house rather than living on his own. So that he would actually have other people around him, because he then went in bits of consulting and stuff, and I remember the last meeting, met him for a coffee, and I said to him, has he got his naval pensions? He ain't done it yet. I said, look, get your naval pensions, it's just wind up work, you don't need this crap anymore. Guy's already had a triple heart bypass. I will go into a bit ins and outs, because he resigned. Then the same year, I'd just come back from Spain and messaged. They say, do you want to meet up for a coffee again? And he messaged and said, oh, I'm in hospital. And I said, well, do you want me to get anything? Thinking, you go, nah, it's all right. And he's given me a shopping list. And it's like, oh, I need some underpants for me. I need a charger from your phone. So it's like about 5 shops all over town to get these bits. And I thought, I know he's on his own, so I'll go and get your stuff for him. And then he gave me stuff, and he's like, oh, we'll do it. And I said, don't worry about it. And he'd had some problems with his oxygen levels in his blood. So we met him and then we met for a coffee afterwards, because he wanted to pay me the money he still owed me, because it bothered him. But on the Christmas, he wished us happy Christmas, and then I didn't get a message in New Year, which I found quite strange, and he was already dead. The fact is, all this had built up on him, as far as I was concerned. It built up on him because they tried to build a case, because they decided they wanted rid of him. Middle-aged man, white man, targeted, just to get rid of him. And I was talking to somebody who was doing one of the investigations months later. And I said, well, Ian, resigned. He says, oh yeah, I was part of this. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but he'd been cancelling maintenance jobs on the CAFM system, the computer aided facilities management system. I said, Ian wouldn't cancel anything. Why is that? He's not computer literate. He's a pens and paper man. Did you ever see his desk? Everything's in pen and paper. This is he's not somebody that goes on the CAFM. The guy did emails. That's as much as he did. I don't think he even had a login for the CAFM system. Oh, I was taught. It's like, yeah, he didn't do that. There was 2 assistants that cancelled jobs. And what it was is they were supposed to cancel and rebook them, and they cancelled them and not put them on there. So then they made out that he'd committed some sort of fraud, even though he wasn't even using the system. He had that, it wasn't his instruction or anything else. But that was the look for anything to get rid of him. And it wasn't down to the fact, was he good at his job or not? Yes, he was a very experienced guy. He knew his gas engineering. He had all his tickets. He made his engineers work, which that was a feat in its own. He was very good at his job, but because he no longer fitted today's dynamic, gone. That's the cultures we have now infested in the industries. And I don't just, that wasn't an isolated one. I mean, I've had myself targeted attacks, but at the same time, I recognise I can just walk away. I'm not, like I say, I've dropped down to now, I do a 40-hour week. I used to do 80, 90 hours. I do 40 hours, and if it doesn't get done today, I'll do it tomorrow. Mañana. I don't owe the business my life. I don't owe the business my integrity. The importance for me is the family. The importance for me is my health. The importance for me is enjoying life. We've got one. We need to live it. See, all went downhill, negative, positive. Because the point being is, everything that's going on around us is not by accident. The target on Farage, the target on Trump, is because the left approach on this is very aggressive in a negative sense. Because that viewpoint is opinionated as fact. You must accept, you must this. Very few people listen. They want you to listen, but they have no intention of listening. In fact, they'll talk over the top of you, they'll shout you down, they'll do this, they'll do everything behind your back, they'll go out the way to be destructive. And the problem is, that's the path they took us down. And the fact that the whole of Europe seems to be going the other way, well, it was going to. Bloody history dictates it. It couldn't go any further left if it tried. I mean, it's so far left, I call it fascism. You know, you're actually trying to instill leftist ideals in education, in business, in every part of the establishment. I mean, you look at the policing, especially the London Met, that's a bloody joke, that place. But the fact is, you can see how they're all politically motivated and not fixated on doing their bloody job. They're all motivated down the one route. BBC, I'm not going there. They're all fixated on creating the status quo that suits themselves at your expense. One of the things I'm doing is reining a lot of stuff in. So I started this, you can tell this is a negative, positive finish off. I'm starting to wean myself off this thing called Amazon. The Amazon TV will be going soon, because we're not even watching it anymore, to be fair. We put Netflix back on because my wife watches it with a neighbour, and I'm saying in April I'm going to have to cancel that again. I'm not supporting funding wokeism. I won't buy Nike anymore. We don't buy Bud. Slowly going down the route of removing things, because all of this stuff survives on money. You remove the money, you remove the source, you remove their power to do what they're doing. We will not have Disney in our house. I will never visit a Disney World. And that's why it's quite good when they highlight this is where you go, oh, good, I'm not buying that anymore. You've got to go down the route of removing it. This is silent protesting. But the good thing is, that money goes back in my bank account, goes towards my Harley. So it's all good. Yeah, but you shouldn't. Yeah, but you shouldn't be stopping buying stuff for people's political. They're not people. These are businesses. If Nike's telling me I should be woke, I say I come in here for a pair of trainers. Stuff your politics. Now you've told me that I should be this. I tell you, I don't need to buy your stuff. And the same goes for all your Uber Eats and all that sort of stuff. I'm cancelling. Well, I already have. I've stopped buying that stuff anyway. But for me, I'm starting to take out anything that's actually funding illegal immigration. You know, you can look into your Uber Eats and stuff and how there's two sides to this. Firstly, illegal working. And secondly, it's been saturated with that many people. It's actually making it non-viable for people that actually want to work for a living that are from the United Kingdom and wherever. I'm for, let's call them grassroots jobs. Your McDonald's and everything else. Oh, and only an idiot works at McDonald's. Do you know what? That person gets up in the morning, goes and earns his money, or her money, not their money. They are contributing to society, and these are stepping stone jobs. I always see them as stepping stones, because some of the dynamics for people that have come from rougher backgrounds, for example, they need some structure to trigger moving forward. Because if you're in an environment where, say, your parents are deadbeat, drug addicts, alcoholics, or whatever, you getting your first job and into a structure where people are supporting you, training you, giving you money for the work you're doing, you are contributing to society, you're working your way out of poverty, you're working your way out of these bad environments. In the same way, you can put yourself through college. You can develop yourself. You're giving yourself a direction. If these jobs are flooded by people from elsewhere, we're depriving the younger people in the UK. I use those stepping jobs when I'm skint sometimes. Because a lot of jobs I have, you've got to have a vehicle. And I've been caught out before where I've come in from the Philippines and not had cash. And I've just took a crappy job. Funny enough, they promised me months of work and it only lasted 3 weeks. And they were like, oh yeah, the contract. They knew the contract was going to be cancelled because the guys in the factory said they do this every month. But that 3 weeks money was enough to buy a car and its insurance so I could actually go and work. You probably say, oh yeah, well you must have had a good job because that was a lot of money. The car was 300 quid. That was 3 weeks wages for the car, the fuel and its insurance. And at the end of the contract, the car went for its MOT and it failed in everything, every single thing. But it got me through the initial need of getting back into work. These are grassroots jobs that don't need preserved, because what we need to do is instill a work ethic and get people into these. And I get that people don't want to do farming jobs. But at the same time, where's the driver for money? If you haven't got a driver, people picking up benefits, they're stuck. If you drop so far down that you're not even thinking about how to get ahead, there's no motivation there. There needs to be some mentoring and driving people forward and developing a mindset that can get you ahead. And it's not about having a bloody, what's his name, Andrew Tate, what colour's your Bugatti? That's not what it's about. It's about valuing yourself, standing on your own 2 feet and being self-sufficient. That's what it's about. Matt, you're going socialist again. It's not socialism. It's I'm not an advocate of the benefit system. I hate the benefit system. I do think that it needs to be pulled back. But I also get the fact is, if we're looking at whatever this immigration figure is in the UK, we are preventing a lot of Brits getting into their first jobs. And I get that a lot of Brits are not as reliable as you'll get some people in from Poland or whatever. I 100% agree with you. But I also state that they've never had a culture that has given them the responsibility of having to be there. We have provided a culture that allows people to sit on their backside. Poland doesn't have that luxury. Hence, they have a work ethic. You look at the Ukrainians. I haven't met a Ukrainian that doesn't work. I have not met somebody from Estonia, Latvia. They all work. I'm not going to mention the countries we know that are problematic. But you'll find many of the people that are out there that have filled jobs in the UK is because they know what it's like to have nothing. In the UK, although people think they've had nothing, don't get me wrong, benefits ain't comfortable. No. Being homeless and stuff, I get it. That's when you've hit rock bottom. But often that's related to other things that are going on as well. So it's more complex. But the fact is, we've removed a lot of the base jobs that allow people to develop and move forward, which then means that we're actually going to bloat our benefit system because a lot of people stuck in it, they aren't getting the opportunity to change it. I mean, my view as well is if you're between 16 and 21, you shouldn't pay tax on your income until after 21, unless it's over, say, 100,000 a year. When I say 100,000, that's income, not business income. Because let's face it, if you're setting up a small shop, 100 grand doesn't go far. But if your personal drawings hit 100k, then you start paying tax. We need to stimulate the next generations. We're destroying it, and globalization loves it. Because if everybody's controlled and you've got every sector under cover, you ain't got technology jumping out at you from somewhere you weren't expecting. You've got everything in your hand, every aspect. What people are learning, how they're thinking, what they watch, what they talk about. You got your Alexa over there listening to you. You got Google over there listening to you. Bixby listening from Samsung. You got what's the one from Portal from Facebook. Everybody's in your back pocket watching and observing what you're doing. It sounds like it's a conspiracy theory, but it's all down the route of control. This is why people like Farage, they don't like, because they can't control him. At least not on the surface. Like I says, I'm always a bit wary of people these days, because you've got to be more down the route of trust has to be earned. But anyway, that's me for today. That's a long video. I don't think there's anything else that we need to cover. But I just want to cover all these aspects, because I do think Farage will disrupt it a bit. I do think Europe's on the rise. It's on the change. Although these elections were for the European Parliament, I also think that it could be useful to actually highlight the corruption in the Parliament. So the fact that people are assuming you couldn't change the EU, there's evidence you can. So you've got to understand that we've been struggling with a leftist system run by people I believe are nothing more than self-serving parasites, and they've had a massive shift to the right, which means we may start seeing other stuff uncovered that we were unaware of, but things are changing. Not all of it's going to be great. Not all of it's going to be fantastic. Some of it won't even change. But in reality, change was inevitable. So even in Spain, the Sanchez has had a bit of a hammering. Vox are getting more popular, which are coming up from the south. But I won't go into those politics too much today. But my view on it, immigration is very simple. If you contribute to the system, you're welcome. If you decide that you want to overthrow it, you want to change it, you want new laws to suit whatever religion you have, you don't want to pay into the system, you're not offering anything. We don't need you. And there's no, and I certainly don't want you. I don't want you here. Be it Spain, be it there. And you go, oh yeah, but you live in a foreign country. Yes, I do. But I pay my way in every aspect. Even when we have charity stuff, I give more here than I would in the UK. Well, sorry, I do give more here than I do in the UK. I think when we had the Ukrainian stuff, I think when the first Ukrainians come, I think they get about £2,000 away. €2,000. So the fact is, yes, I will contribute here. I also do the same in the Philippines. I still do. Well, one of my friends just died as well. But Manuel. See, that's me being in Spain. Manuel. Yeah, he was always doing charity projects and trying to get wheelchairs and things like that in the Philippines. But he's died recently. That's another good soul gone. But the problem in the UK is it's very difficult to help. Firstly, you find there's enough money, it's just how it's been spent in many ways. And then you've got all the other stuff that's going on where you're thinking, I've got that many people in my pocket already, I don't want to give anything here. That's the reality of it. I already pay a stupid amount of tax and get nothing. I'd rather cancel my contribution to the NHS and have it fully private. And when I say fully private, for Spain, and just say to hell with the UK side. Why? Well, like when I hurt my back, I flew back to Spain. I was not relying on the NHS. I mean, in fact, when my back had collapsed, my friend called for an ambulance. They got us on the phone, because when it goes, it's like a bloody... what do you call it? Like a deck chair. It just folds in half, and I'm just like, bang! I can't get up. I can't move. Just like moving that, I can feel that all the way through my spine. And even there, because they'd phoned an ambulance, and it's like, don't worry about it. I'll sort myself out. Because I be a man. But the ambulance coordinator on the phone says, well, all they'll do is they'll drug you up in morphine and just shove you in the hospital so you can walk again. And I'm like, no, don't bother. That day, it took me 2 hours or 2.5 hours to get off the floor. Then I had to walk over to the Boots chemist, which I knew was on an estate opposite. That took a long time, because even getting down a curb, it's hard to describe it unless you've actually felt that level of pain. It is a shooting pain from the bottom of my spine all the way back through all the way up my spine. It is really painful. But even then, I managed to get in, and I could just get to the counter, and I could hold on at the edge of the counter with 2 fingers, and I just said to the woman, says that, sorry, don't want to be a pain, but do you have, like, I need drugs for back pain, I need a a harness for my back, because I can't walk around this door, can you? And she went and got it, put it straight on, gave us some, I think it was ibuprofen. So when I'm like that, I sort of double the dosage to get it going. But even that, I had to cancel my company car. It was picked up from there because I couldn't get in it to move it. My mate took us at 3 o'clock in the morning, because I booked a flight that day and I flew back to Spain. It was quite funny at the airport because I'm stood with the suitcase because I've got all my stuff with me. Mate's come down, he's helped us down there to make say, "You all right?" There, it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I'm stood there, and you know the air crew that's coming past. They go, you know, they flight attendants. I says, "The desk's not open for another 3 hours." I says, "Look, it's all right, just leave me. If I sit down, I might better stand back up." And I'm just like literally leaning on the suitcase for 3 hours before it opened, before I checked in. Got my harness on, so I'm okay. I'm still getting a lot of pain because if I like hit my heel or hit my toes, I feel it in my spine. I got all the way through there, and I got on the plane, and it's just like bite your lip and let yourself drop into the seat, and thinking, I hope I can get out the other side. Well, I did, but yeah, there you go. The NHS response was they would just stick you in a bed. I flew back to Spain and did I think it was it 10? I think it took 20 weeks of physio to recover. I was in a bad way, but I recovered. Went down and did physio every day, private healthcare, bang, done. Yeah. Anyway, keeping it positive. Now, I'll finish off on one since we're already at an hour and a half. This will finish off. There was an interesting thing I was watching this morning. We're talking about being a stoic, because a lot of the stuff on that's promoted on being a stoic is around being passive, and they're missing a lot of the other aspects of it. And I do recommend broaden your viewpoint beyond just Marcus Aurelius, because Marcus Aurelius has a lot of good information and stuff in there, and if you sort of look at his life as well, it's not just as simple as being based every day. So being based, for me, the importance of being based is not to forgive everything. Recognize that you still may have enemies out there. You may have people that you want to revenge, but also when you're looking at revenge, also recognize, is it worth the hassle? You know, because if it's in a work environment, moving on, they probably wouldn't even remember in 6 months that you were there, and you're probably focused on it. So in those instances, it is a lot of time to reflect and look at, is this worth the headache? This is why you'll hear phrases like staying in your lane and things like that, where people are like, where people keep getting in my lane, so they decide to leave companies. It's all to do with picking your battles. See, for me, what's happened in work recently isn't great for the way people have been treated, etc., etc. But the good thing is, I have helped several of them into new jobs, and they all seem to be much happier. So, for me, in my positive mindset, I've done what I could to help others. The next step is what I do for myself. So, do I go down the route of revenge and all this sort of? And the answer is no, because I don't. To be perfectly blunt, I don't think these people are smart enough to realise what they actually do. I actually see a lot of stuff is actually replicated, where they're getting a bad culture from people above them and just replicating it, because it's a bit like children learning from people treat them badly, so they then treat others badly, and that's where a lot of that comes from. It doesn't mean they're forgiven. It just means that you can see some of these people are as stupid as you think they are. But it gets back to a fundamental, is what is the output? If there's no positive output, don't waste your time on it. You never know where paths cross in the future. You may find that somebody you didn't get on with now, you're suddenly their boss in 2 years' time. And then you could do things to them if you wanted to, if you're that way inclined. Or you can be the better person and turn around and say, well, that's them, I'm better than that. It's all about perspective. It's all about what you want to achieve and what your outputs are. For me, the politics of work are not important. If I start the business that I'm looking at now, the importance of that is actually development, not just for me. There's at least 15 other people wanting to come in on the back of it. I can make that into an industry of change. What would be interesting is if we developed our own company. As you could probably guess, my strategy around things like diversity and equality do not match what corporate waffle does. My diversity and equality will actually be based on output. It will be based on merit. The diversity aspect is it doesn't give you a gold star. The diversity aspect is that we don't actually see black and white, ginger and orange or whatever. We take candidates based on who's best for the job and do they produce the right results. That's it. That is diversity and equality, because there is no selection just because you got to take him on because he's from Gambia or whatever. No, I don't. It doesn't make any sense. But you can't be so vocal. You just say our policy is basically everyone is treated as equal. Everything is based on output. Everything is based on our selection process does not single anybody out. That's our diversity. We're not selecting anybody for special groupings. The fact is, we request that nobody puts what colour they are, what their religion is, or anything is on their CVs. Hang on. But doesn't that mean you're actually just going to select the best candidate? That's exactly the point. See, you see some of these companies now, they want to know what religion you are and everything else. Why? Are you going to have a prayer afternoon? You're going to get together and sing Kumbaya? Got to get a prayer room together? No, absolutely not. It's stuff they don't even need to know. So my view on it is, we ain't going to ask. We're going to employ people for actually being able to do the job. You know, that thing they're employed for. And no, I don't care what your sexual orientation is, because all I need to know is, can you do the job? And I may not input male or female on there, because on that aspect, I don't need to know either. It doesn't affect my insurance or anything else, so I do not care. Because let's face it, what company doesn't have toilets for males and females? A lot of this stuff doesn't need to be in any of this. And that's the way it's screen it back. It's just turn around saying, well, we're not selecting people on this. Well, what about if people get pregnant, whatever? Well, cross that bridge when we come to it. They have to look what the legal legislation is on how much time people are allowed off and stuff like that. Well, paternity for men. Yeah, cross that bridge when we come to it. But in reality, I'm focused on the job, not the benefits. Sick pay, yeah. Try and get down the route of good healthcare, yes. But I'd also be looking at the fact of seeing how I can get tax incentives for individuals to take out their own money, where it costs them nothing, but they get a tax rebate. So in other words, they're paying for their own healthcare, so even if they left, they could carry it on. But they get the tax incentive because it's a deduction within the business. So it's before they get paid, it's sort of contributions and things like that. Same as trying to get people down the route of personal investments and things. A lot of stuff that companies aren't doing, you know, because my whole philosophy is independence for people. So it would be teaching people how to do their own investments as well as their pension funds and stuff. So investments like things like Vanguard and trying to get people to actually invest in their own funds, even if it's like £50 a month, is to encourage them to start seeing that growth themselves and go down that route. Because once you set people off in the path, it's up to them if they do it or not. But the idea being is, once they're on that path, away you go. I mean, the money I put in the account last year on the Vanguard is producing at least £1,000 a year income, tax free. I'll do that for the next 10 years. It'll be more than 10,000 a year income, tax free, off my investments. And if you get all your staff doing that, what a way it works. Positive thinking. Anyway, guys, I'm going. Catch you later.